Well, hello everybody, Claire Obermarck here. I'm down at the creek in Sedona. I'm going to keep the camera pointed at the water today, which I think will be really lovely for a little session. And I'm going to start today with a poem from Robert Louis Stevenson. It's called Looking Glass River. Smooth it glides upon its travel, here a wimple, there a gleam. Oh, the clean gravel, oh, the smooth stream. Sailing blossoms, silver fishes, pave pools as clear as air. How a child wishes to live down there. We can see our coloured faces floating on the shaken pool, down in cool places, dim and very cool. Till a wind or water wrinkle, dipping marten, plumping trout, spreads in a twinkle and blots all out. You often see herons down here. They're absolutely stunning. I just saw one as I was just reaching down here. And I'll start with a heron story. It's a folk tale from Japan. It's a well-known folk tale. And it starts with a young boy. And he was really kind, and he never let an animal suffer. If he saw an animal or a bird that was injured, he would rescue it and nurse it back to health and then let it back into the wild. And that's exactly what he did on this day with a heron that he found with a broken wing. The heron's left wing was broken, and he knew if he left it, it would not be able to fish and would surely perish or be eaten by some of the bigger animals. And so he took the heron home and he put a splint on her wing and he nursed her for a fair few weeks. And then one day he realised the way she was moving meant that the heron was better. And he took off the splint and he released her, and off she flew up into the clouds, off into the sky. Well, that young boy grew up and he finished his schooling and he decided he was ready to marry, and he fell in love with a beautiful Japanese girl and they started to live together as a married couple. But there was one stipulation. She made him promise that when she was in her room of an evening working, he would never go in. And he kept that promise, and he decided that he would be good to his word. For she was a really gifted seamstress. She span and made the most beautiful silk gowns, beautiful brocades that they sold. And for many years that gave them an income. And he kept his promise, he didn't go in the room. Well, when he was a bit older, his friends started teasing him about it, saying, what was his wife doing in that room? Why wasn't he allowed in, And he decided that curiosity could get the better of him. And one evening he put his hand upon the handle and he slid the door open, and there he came face to face with his beautiful young wife, just as she was transforming into a heron. The beautiful blue heron sat at the loom, looked at the man, bowed her beak in thanks, and flew through the open window, and he never saw her again. Sometimes the most simplest folk tales have the most layers, so there are lots of meanings that you can get from that simple tale. And I was thinking about herons, and I want to take us over to the other side of the world now, to a place called Shropshire in England, which is a county that borders Wales. And Shropshire is one of those places that is famed for its herons, and it has plenty of nature watches that you can go and do there. And in a place called Ellesmere is particularly famed for its herons. And the word mere means a great expanse of water that is quite shallow, that it has no trajectory, it's not deep. So Ellesmere is a place where this story comes from. And it's about a creature that really only appears in folk tales in Cheshire and Shropshire in England. We have the Selkies up in the north up around Scotland and between Scotland and Ireland. They're seals who can become humans upon the land and live as seals in the water. We have mermaids, of course. But the ashray or the asray are creatures that come from the streams and lakes and rivers in that part of England. Some say that they're green, some say that they do have webbed feet, but they always have long hair, they have big black eyes, and they're said to only come up once a century out of the water. And they go under the full moon once every 100 years to heal and grow under the moon's beams. And this story starts on a short, hot summer's evening with a young fisherman called Tom. He thinks it's the perfect night to go out onto the mere. It's so warm, everybody's leaving the windows open, folks are casting the blankets aside. But for Tom on the mere, he really enjoys that lovely cool breeze on the back of his neck, and he knows it's the perfect time to fish. So he takes his boat out and he gets into the expanse of water and he lets down his nets and he leans back into the boat and he starts to snooze away, aided easily by the lapping water and the gently rock of the boat. And when he opens his heavy lids, he sees the full moon and he dips in and out of a wonderful sleep. And eventually, when he wakes for the last time, he sees the moon is low in the sky and he knows it's time to pull in his nets and get home. That morning will be here soon. And he's absolutely delighted to feel that his nets are really heavy. He must have got a really good catch. So he pulls them and hauls them up into the boat just as the last clouds are leaving the full moon to expose not a silvery batch of fish, but trestles of hair, 2 big black eyes, and 2 hands clutching around 2 knees. Tom had caught an asray. Well, the asray started to speak straight away in an ancient tongue unbeknown to Tom. She started to chatter, and such a yearning and torment was in the tone of this language and her voice. His heart broke. He needed to set her free immediately. He needed to cut her free from that net. And she reached her arm through the net and pointed up at the moon, becoming more and more desperate. And then Tom thought, how long had his children gone now without things that they needed? How long had his wife gone without things that she needed? In fact, how long had he gone with many things that he needed? Up at the big house, they'll give a good penny for this, he thought. Or if they don't, one of their rich landowning friends would love one of these creatures in their private lakes or ponds. I could be rich. I could support my family for a long, long time. I'll keep her. And his heart hardened. Well, just as he thought that, he leant forward to start rowing the boat back, and she reached her arm out towards him, and their arms connected, and immediately a burning sensation ripped through Tom's body, and a smouldering, smoky smell rose up into the air, and they both pulled their arms back in shock. Right, that's it, thought Tom. I need to start rowing quick. And he started rowing back towards the place in the reeds, and then he pulled up out of the water big clumps of wet reeds and he put them over the asray to keep her moist and damp. And then he secured the boat and he turned back round, stepped back into the boat to pick her up, and he lifted up the reeds, and that's all there was, just a light bundle of sopping reeds, no asray. And he looked down, and all that was left of her was a puddle of water. And Tom returned home early that morning with a burn on his arm and a heavy, heavy heart. So that's the folk tale. I actually got that folk tale from Amy Douglas, and it's in a Shropshire collection of folk tales that was published by her and through the History Press. So that's a lovely book that you can have a look for. You can also look at Amy Douglas doing interviews with other traditional storytellers, and there is one up on the Storytelling Sedona site that you can watch and listen to as well, which is interesting. So that's the version of that folk tale is that I've just told is from Amy Douglas's collection. So leading on from the herons now, we've gone from Japan We've gone all over to the other side of the world, to England, to Shropshire, and then we've come back here to Sedona on this really lovely day. You don't get a lot of stories about the Asrai, to be honest, because they're so localised to Shropshire and Cheshire. So they're quite unusual stories. There is a mention of them in a poem that was by Robert Williams Buchanan, and he wrote of them: before man grew of the 4 elements, the Asrai grew of 3, fire, water, air, not earth. They were not earthly. The Asrai wandered, choosing for their homes all gentle places, valleys mossy deep, star-haunted waters, yellow strips of sand, kissing the sad edge of the shimmering sea, and porphyry caverns in the gaunt hillsides. So Tom chose the wrong night of the entire century to go fishing. Well, I think that's about it for today. We've done 2 stories and we've thought about the heron. And I'll come back down here to this quiet bit of the creek and do some more stories about water and rivers and streams. But that's it for today. Take care. Bye-bye.